목에 서로동 올러 여상쇼을기 물르니 마중리시 술락 고라도 건로 멍보골 kitki 예수 나으들기 신질로 시식수솔 구루 범모 시니 that chant, it's Tibetan chant, and it is it's a chant to Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava, who's the first Buddhist teacher to come to Tibet. And it's basically calling on his presence to be here. And the way that I learned it, one of the things I learned about it is that that historical person, Padmasambhava, who's really enshrouded in myth, is not, is just one, is the present incarnation of guru-ness. And that when you're chanting that, you're inviting the inner guru principle that's in the universe, that's in each individual, into the room. And you're also inviting each individual person's root lama or root guru into the room. So whoever you see as your master, your teacher, your God, your goddess, is hereby invited into the room, including your own divine nature, your own God nature, your own goddess nature. So, I really don't know what I'm going to speak about tonight. I mean, I know the subject is devotion, but I don't know what words I'll say. But the invocation is an acknowledgement that something higher or other than any particular person's conscious mind, conscious humanness only, is going to teach us tonight. So each person, when they share the goddess or God or divine can be your teacher in that moment through that person. And we know this happens breaking down all the time. We know this happens all the time. Anyway, so it's an acknowledgement of that, an invocation. Makes it easy. I don't have to teach them. And a lot of the teachings, I don't know what they'll be, what you will learn. It can be nonverbal. It can be an energetic connection. It can be something happening in your field. Or something will connect, having nothing to do with devotion, that you'll hear, it'll ring a bell. So for me, that kind of worldview, that's what devotion is. It's the recognition that I'm always in relationship with the beloved. Always. Sometimes I recognize it, sometimes I don't. I'm really happy that you guys are here. It's really kind of a surprise to me that so many people will be into devotion. So it's really, wow. It seems like this subject has come of age. That it's important to a lot of people. So I think I'd like to just ask you if you have anything you'd like to share about any aspect of devotion from your own life, if you want to confess it or speak it, share it. And any questions, if there's any way that I could be of any help or give you my own perspective. Because it's really, this whole field of devotion is not part of what we, it's a generic devotion. I heard many people in the small groups, in the small group and in the larger group in the morning, speak about a sense of a generic devotion that's permeating and waking down. It's like a love for the work, or a love for spirit itself, or a love for each of the folks here. And you can feel that, generic devotion. So that's devotion in itself. And then there's also, and that you could say is part of core dharma, really. That kind of devotion, that devotional sense, is part of what all waking down teachers share. A devotion to awakening, to each other, to all of you, to everyone, to all the hungry, hurting hearts. And many of the waking down teachers have their own perspectives on what, you could say, our own personal dharmas. It's kind of how we've individuated without actually leaving the core dharma. The core dharma is what we've grown from. That's the base. But we have our own takes on things. So I don't want to be, there'll be moments when I'm speaking where it's just my experience, and it has, other waking down teachers have very different experiences. So I want to put that caveat out there as well, that disclaimer. So if there's any way that I could, be of any assistance or give you my view, if it's helpful, that I'd be happy to do that too.
That would be helpful. Give you,
yeah, about what?
Exactly. Review about your experience and how you came into this.
Devotion in general?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, big.
You can, I wish I could ask a question but I'm try to say what's up for me. I've heard Dan speak about devotion at his sitting group. A chance to go to it, and I just don't know. I would like to have devotion, and I'm not clear, and I've recognized, like what you said here, that I've just felt love for so many people here, and Samuel and you, and just the teachings and how much the work that you've done, and that's devotion.
Yeah, that's devotion.
It's not something that you can fake.
Yeah.
it's something that arises, right?
Yeah.
Just,
Right on.
but you think about, I mean, I think I had something about it, like, you should have devotion. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you have that, or
I noticed that.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, when I first, thought, like, because Van asked me about different feminine Torah, different
by the way, can everyone hear her?
No.
Okay, so it's a little difficult that way. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Why don't you just
I've
take
got a bigger
over
mouth. Let's
from
see.
there.
So does the mic work? Maybe we should use that for the people, especially for people asking questions. Thanks, Van. Yeah, there's no shoulds about devotion. That's the first thing. No shoulds.
I think most people know that.
Yeah, no shoulds. I mean, it's basically finding your devotion. Scanning your life, scanning your body, scanning your heart, scanning your own experience.
That is really helpful.
Yes, and seeing how you're devoted. If you feel an inclination or a pull towards a particular teacher or teachers, then nourishing them, using pictures. Maybe putting up an altar, if you feel to. This is all, this is a little, devotion is a lot like sex. It's kind of taboo. It's something that, everybody's different at it, really, and it's basically the same thing for everybody, but not really. And it's not something that people usually talk about, especially if they get really detailed. You could joke about it, but if you don't really share much openly at the lunch tables, you're not having a lot of explicit, exact sexual conversations as you're having lunch over at the hall there. And it's very much like that with devotion. It's so personal. It's so close to the heart that it's, there's a way in which your devotional life will always just be your devotional life. But you can learn. I mean, there's books you can look at and say, okay, it's kind of, that position looks interesting and all that stuff. And it's sort of like this with it. When I say things like, well, get a picture, getting an altar, it's sort of like, have you tried this position and see if it feels good to you? It's really like that. You get, there's like secondary ways of cultivating your devotion. And so that can include using a photograph or a picture of your teacher. And that's kind of really far out. Because ultimately, all of your teachers, anything that you're drawn to, what it's taking you to is your own heart. And it's taking you to onlyness. Onlyness as heart. So this weird thing happens. I mean, I know many of you know this. This weird thing happens when you put a piece of paper that is called a picture someplace and you gaze with it. You start to feel transmission. And that's just damn weird. I mean, it's a piece of paper. Really. So what's really happening is you're sitting in your room, staring at a piece of paper, and you start getting blessings and grace and transmission. That's really what's happening. But because it's your teacher, you can open up, there's some sense of trust in the room. And what you're opening up is to your own heart, or onlyness in the form of your own heart. Maybe they're the same thing, the heart with a capital H. And you're tapping into the transmission, quote unquote, of that teacher. And meanwhile, they're snoring somewhere, or or in an argument with their wife. But you're tapping into their transmission. You are, really, because their transmission is the same as your transmission. There really isn't any different. They're like, we function as kind of the teachers, even in person, even in the flesh. We function as catalysts for you to get in touch with your own deep nature, your own transmission. That's really what happens in gazing and everything here. It's all you, ultimately, because it's all onlyness. And you is not separate than me, so that's kind of a weird thing. So I don't know, I'm kind of going off on Is that useful?
Mhm.
You know, oh yeah,
No, if you have more, go ahead. I have an additional question.
Okay.
When you're ready.
so, you know, some folks, it depends, like, it's, you know, for some folks, just the idea of devotion is enough. I've had, and other people are like, well, what do I do? How do I make it more real? I feel something, I have a sense of, that I'm in touch with the goddess, but I'd like to actually, you know, have it be more concrete. So I tell them to do equally weird things, just like staring at a piece of paper. You know, you can talk to yourself, or pray. You can sit in a room and say, I don't know what you are, where you are. Like I had one friend who said, you know, I'm really connected to the goddess, but I don't know what form. And I really want to connect to a particular form of the goddess so I can begin, you know, really having this connection and this ongoing relationship. So I say, well, you know, just sit in your room. I told him to sit in your room and talk to the goddess and say, I don't even know who you are. I don't know what your name is. I don't know what form. Please lead me. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to walk around waiting. Maybe I'll make it 2 months, but I'm going to wait until you give me some sign, a feeling in me, a sense of this is right, whatever, so that I'll know that this is the form. And, you know, about a week later, he said, you know, I was walking past a store, and in the storefront was a statue of the goddess Lakshmi. And as soon as I saw it, I just felt this presence and a deep connection. And I said, thank you. And I walked in, and he didn't know he was into Lakshmi before that. That was beautiful. He didn't even know the name of it until he got the statue. And then he brought it home, and then he used that the same way you use a piece of paper. So you use a piece of metal. And then the sense of presence starts to grow. So in my life, I sit in front of metal all the time, and some wood, and paper. I mean, if you've ever gone into my shrine, or many folks in Portland have gone in there, it's covered with pictures and statues and all of this. And you walk in there, and there is a palpable sense of presence. It's a hell of a lot less expensive than a Transfiguration Retreat. You can be in the soup just sitting, I can be in the soup just sitting in my room. And that happens because I go through the theater, the sacred theater, of pretending that it isn't metal and it isn't a piece of paper. A lot of this has to do with imagination. We've, in the West, totally kind of, imagination always means just fantasy. It doesn't have any function that is useful except to entertain somebody. But that's just really not true at all. I don't know my partner, Vivian. I've lived with her for about 8 years. I've known her for about 13 years. And my understanding of who she is, like when I think of her and I yearn for her and I feel for her, is little partial snippets of my experience when I've been with her, that my mind put together and created a fantasy about. And that's my placeholder. So when I actually see her, but I immediately feel and think about all that fantasy. That's Vivian. Hi, I love you. I don't really even know who she is. I don't know who anyone here is. And I've met many of you, some of you I know for years. And my sense of who you are is based in imagination. It's not consciously, I'm not conjuring it up on purpose, but I meet somebody, we have a few words, I think, oh, he's like this kind of person. Yeah, now I know who Das is. Yeah, he's like this. He's like that. And the next time I see him is a little bit more added. And then I have these memories that I put together, or that I put together, and so I know who Das is. Really, Das is an absolute mystery. I have no idea who this beautiful man is. And all my fantasies are not his fantasies about who he is. And they're not your fantasies about who he is. So which one of us is right? But there's here he is. And it doesn't mean that I don't really know him more and more the more I talk to him, the more I listen to him with an open heart. But it's never really fully who he is. I feel closer and closer, and more trust, and more relaxation happens. The more and more the relationship grows. But it's all through imagination. All of it. Because it's just a mystery. The imagination helps me to relax with him. And in that relaxation, transmission happens. Connectedness happens. The boundaries dissolve. And I'm resting in holiness. So this happens with my beloved, Vivian. This happens with my beloved friends. And this happens with the ultimate beloved. A relationship is developed. That is imaginary, but I'm not making any effort to create it. It happens through synchronicities. You ever have those weird things where it seems like you're, and when you're being guided, well, what's that? I mean, a lot of people are like guided, but they don't really think about anybody's guiding me. You don't have to define it, but just to trust, call it spirit, call it your divine nature, whatever you want to call it. In some ways, it's not you, because it's guiding you. But in other ways, it's not separable from you. So imagination's really okay. It's really necessary, really, to get through the day. I've been imagining all day today that I know who you are, and just using your name, I sit down and I feel safe enough, because I know a little bit about you. I imagine you're safe because you're here. And you signed up, and I imagine you're all in waking down because you're here. And that really relieves me, and I relax. And things happen when you relax like that, into holiness, into being.